we never intended for Summoner to be a, touring 9 months out of the year kind of band. And when we signed to Magnetic Eye Records, we made it very clear to them that we were we like to get in the studio. We like to make records. We will play shows locally and up and down the Eastern Seaboard kind of thing. We'll play festivals if they'll have us, where it's like we go and fly out for the weekend, play the show, have a good time with our friends, come home to our families, right?
Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. I hope you had a glorious weekend, because I most certainly did. This Vox and Hops episode is presented by Heavy Montreal. Heavy Montreal are Montreal's premier metal promoter, and I'm very stoked to have teamed up with them to bring you Heavy Montreal presents Vox and Hops Brewtal Montreal. That's right, a true metal and craft beer festival is happening in my hometown of Montreal on December 17th at Corona Theatre. Performing this year is my band Cryptopsy alongside The Agonist, The Great Sabatini, Necrotic Mutation, and Burning the Oppressor. All night long, you will be able to enjoy amazing craft beers by some of Quebec's best breweries, such as BG Brasserie Urbaine, Messorum Brassatorium, Brasserie du Bas-Canada, Sir John Brewing Company, Cinquième Baron, and Brasseur de Montréal. If you would like to attend this event, you should absolutely pick up your ticket right now, because tickets are flying, and I would hate for you to miss your chance to be a part of the first edition of Heavy Montreal Presents Vox and Hops Brewtal Montreal. I'm so excited, and I just can't wait for December 17th to arrive so that I can enjoy life, metal, and craft beer with all of you at Heavy Montreal Presents Vox and Hops Brewtal Montreal. Super stoked to announce that on December 4th, I will be in Toronto at Folly Brewing, because I am releasing a brand new Vox and Hops collab. It's called How About Some Coffee. It is a coffee stout, and it is in collaboration with Folly Brewing and the Meet Me for Coffee podcast. Now, I'm not sure if you remember, but when I had George Penai of the Meet Me for Coffee podcast on Vox and Hops a few weeks ago, we decided that we should probably do a collab together. If George ever got some Meet Me for Coffee made, I told him that I would find a brewery to make us a collab. The very day that that episode aired, Jamie Morris, the Vox and Hops alumni, who was a brewer at Henderson Brewing Company, hit me up. He's now at Folly Brewing, and he made that brew. So a brand new Vox and Hops collab is dropping December 4th. We are doing a release party at Folly Brewing. It runs from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., and we're going to be recording a live podcast. So I would love for you to be there if you could be there. If you're planning on coming, I highly suggest that you make your reservations now, because this place is going to be packed, and I'd hate for you to miss it. So head on over to follybrewpub.com. That's FOLLYBREWPUB.com to make your reservations for December 4th at around 3 p.m. I'm going to be there. It's going to be super fun, and I can't wait to hang out with all of you. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I'd just like to ask you to follow the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. But more than that, I'm also asking you to tell a friend about the podcast. If there's someone in your life that is just a huge beer enthusiast, a beer nerd, a craft beer enthusiast, you should let them know that the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast exists. Even if they're not the biggest metalhead, that's cool, because Vox and Hops has over 300 episodes where I talk to my guests about their lives, music, and a bunch about craft beer. So we may just be able to convert someone into a metalhead by getting them to listen to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast. If you would encourage one of your friends to become a brand new Vox and Hops head, that would be something that I would truly appreciate. Now, in today's episode, I'm with AJ Peters of Summoner. Get ready, everyone. This is Vox and Hops episode number 310.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today, I'm with AJ Peters of Summoner. AJ, I hooked up with you for Brewtal North America. We somewhat cheated and said that you were alumni, but you weren't quite an alumni yet. So we had to conduct an interview. Here we are today. I'm glad that this happened. Let's start with a simple, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. You know, just like I was saying, living the life of a suburban dad, trying to be a rock star on the side. But, you know,
You got this. You got this. Let's talk about something a bit more dark, though. Let's dance into how you've been coping throughout this pandemic. How have you been coping with the year of 2020, which is now lingering into more than half of 2021? How have you been coping with this time?
I mean, I think much the same as a lot of other people out there, just one day at a time, trying to, you know, do what's right by me, my family, and the people around me. You know, just making sure I'm up on what we're supposed to be doing to keep everybody safe. You know, the masking, the vaccinations, all that fun stuff. Now, you know, with this new Delta variant, things are kind of thrown for a loop. But you know, just putting the mask on when I go into crowded places and stuff. And, you know, but other than that, at home, it's been a lot of, you know, me and the wife had a baby in the middle of the pandemic. So he's now 11 months old. Yeah, he was born in September of last year. So
Congrats.
My wife's, thank you very much. Yeah, my wife spent the most of the pandemic pregnant and miserable. I know. And then, you know, we had a pandemic baby that was not used to, you know, not used to being socialized. You know, the family could barely, you know, see him, hold him, all that stuff. So now that things have gotten a little bit better and people are vaccinated and the family's vaccinated, you know, he's getting used to being out with the grandparents and the cousins and aunts and all that stuff. So, you know.
From experience, there's less people that comes to see the second or third baby.
Yeah, definitely.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one's a big deal. But yeah, the second, yeah, he was still a big deal, but yeah, it's not quite as big of a deal.
I was like, why are these people coming to my house?
Yeah, right? Who are you?
Vox and Hops is all about hanging out with my metal friends, talking about their lives, music, and craft beer. Now, what beer do you have on your side there that we're going to be sharing virtually? I hope it's something that was created by Gilded Skull Brewing and Widowmaker.
Well, I do have our collaboration from Gilded Skull Brewing and Widowmaker. Unfortunately, this can is empty. Yeah, well, as I promised you back when we made the date for this, that I would put one in the back of the fridge and kind of cover it up with stuff so nobody drank it. Well, that didn't work out as well as planned, because I had some friends over and somebody said, "Hey, can I grab a beer?" "Yeah, go help yourself in the fridge." And they took it upon themselves to like dig through everything in my fridge, found the Riff Cannon, and I caught them drinking it halfway through. So that was my last can, because obviously the Riff Cannon being such a great beer that I enjoyed so much, I drank a lot of it. And it went pretty quick. And, you know, I kept hitting Widowmaker up for more and more.
Amazing.
They had to cut me off at a certain point. But yeah, so I got the can, but I will actually, I'm going to drink another Widowmaker beer while we're talking here, which is between Here and There, which is another Kolsch they just did after the Riff Cannon. So I think that inspired them doing the Kolsch for the Riff Cannon. They, you know, they hadn't done a Kolsch before, so they're doing another one. This one they changed up some ingredients, they tell me. Haven't tried it yet. This will be my first taste. But yeah, so that's what I'll be drinking.
Amazing. On my side, I am drinking a Vox and Hops Brewtal North America brew. This is a Fuming Mouth and Bone Up Brewing's collab called the Great Equalizer. This is a smoked brown ale, 5.5% ABV. Love them both. Excellent pairing. I love when things like that happen. When for Brewtal North America, when I like paired people together and it was just like an absolute fit. It was, these two were just so perfect. They were like, we're Fuming Mouth. We want to have something, you know, on fire, smoky. And Liz from Bone Up was like, fuck yes, I love smoked ales, and I never get to brew them. So she was very excited. They were very excited to get this going. You were saying about Bone Up.
Yeah, well, they're obviously Boston local too. So you know, Widowmaker being South Shore and Bone Up being North Shore. We got the great honor of actually meeting the owners of Bone Up. They're Liz and forgive me on her husband's name.
Me too. I'm being
yeah, well, Liz and her husband, we met them. They were very gracious. They did a Summoner beer a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah, they just did it because they were fans, and we didn't really know. And then we kind of saw it, and somebody actually, I think, came to us and said like, "Hey, Bone Up Brewing has like got a beer on their tap list called Summoner." Like,
it's so cool.
And I honestly can't even remember what kind of beer it was, because it was a couple years ago and we were pretty We were pretty heavy into it when we went there, but we just kind of showed up and we sat at the bar and we were you're just drinking. You know, we didn't say who we were or anything like that. We just kept ordering the Summoners, and they ended up being quite good. And then, you know, at the end of the night, we actually said to the bartender, like, the bartender said something along the lines of, "You guys really like those Summoner beers, huh?" And I said, "Well, we actually are Summoner." It was me. It was all of us. It was me, Joe, Scott, Chris, all of us in there. And she said, "Oh my God, I have to go get the owners. They're in the back." So
cool.
we got them and we hung out with them and had some beers with them, and they're great people. They gave us a bunch of cool merch. I think I still have a Bone Up Brewing lunchbox in the live room at my studio over here.
That's badass.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So your tab, I got a glitch there. That's amazing. So that means that your tab got a little bit lighter by mentioning who you were.
By that time, I was so many beers deep. I don't even know if we paid, honestly.
Well, cheers to you. Cheers to Boston breweries. Yeah.
There you go.
Ooh, the smoke on the nose is amazing.
Yeah, this is very good. This is a little bit more hoppy than the Riff Cannon was. The Riff Cannon was smoother, lighter, more citrusy. This one's a little bit heavier. I like it. It's nice. Got a little bit more of that kind of the bitterness to it. The hoppy bitterness there. But
they love their hops, Widowmaker.
They love their IPAs and their double IPAs and all of the New England IPAs and all that stuff.
This is amazing. It's got that caramel malt finish, but yeah, the smokiness, but it's not overpowering, so it's not like drinking hot dog water.
Very nice. That sounds like a beer I would have been very into it had I got a chance. I'm sure they're out by now.
Yeah, it's all gone basically. So a lot of the Brewtal North America brews just disappeared, which made me very happy.
Yeah. Limited runs that went very quickly. I mean, I know the Riff Cannon went quite quickly from Widowmaker's stock there. So
I'd like to hear about your first beer. Do you remember the very first beer that you drank, AJ?
No, not exactly. I mean, there's stories of, you know, when I was 3 or 4 years old, my brother putting beer in my orange juice sippy cup thing, which I don't know what kind of beer it was, but you know, I guess that would technically be my first beer. That story has been confirmed by my parents because my brother got in a lot of trouble for it because my brother's 13 years older than me. So when I was 4, he was 17. I was born in Northampton, England. And so we were living over in England at the time.
Really?
And and you know, my brother, obviously drinking age much lower over there. You know, my brother had been going to pubs since he was 15 years old and stuff like that. And he just thought it'd be funny to throw some beer and with some orange juice in my sippy cup and let me drink it. And apparently when my parents got home from their night out, when he was babysitting me, I was being ridiculous. And
I can imagine so.
And my brother got in a ton of trouble for that one. But so that was technically my first beer. I'm sure it was some kind of like London ale or something like that, you know. But you know, I grew up in, you know, where suburban Michigan meets rural Michigan. So, you know, my idea of drinking back then was beer bonging Natty Ice through a road cone in the woods somewhere, you know. So, you know, but you know, can't really remember my first one, but there was a lot of Budweiser and Natty Ice and Michelob and all that kind of stuff.
Natty Ice fueled Summer Slaughter 2008 for Crip Chops. See,
there you go. Exactly. See, yeah.
How about what beer would be? Do you have like a pinnacle beer of when you discovered beer could be more the craft beer explosion in your life?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, one of my favorites right now is actually other than again going back to Widowmaker. I know the Widowmaker guys very well, so I drink a lot of their beer. And the Widow Lager, their house lager, is really good. I'm a big fan of lagers. I love lagers. I'm not a huge IPA fan. I tried a million of them. The hoppiness, the bitterness of them after they just get too much. To me, a lot of the more fragrant ones taste somewhat like, I think, drinking perfume would taste, which I know is blasphemy to say, but that's just my palate. But yeah, one of my favorites right now is one of the obviously larger brews out here out of Framingham is Jack's Abbey House Lager. Yep. Great brewery. You know, obviously they're huge. Not exactly a small little tiny place anymore. But that's one of my favorites. One of my longtime favorites has been I again, being from England, I like Fuller's. Fuller's ESB is a big one that I like to drink a lot. London Pride, I like both of those. I think many years ago when I was on a trip back to England to see the family and stuff, I was going into the pubs and drinking the London Pride and everything out of the cask.
Hand-pumped?
Yeah, hand pump cask.
Love
London
it.
Pride was so good. Started buying it in bottles and stuff over here. Not quite the same, but
Nope. Amazing. How about the soundtrack of your youth when you were growing up in your parents' or guardians' house? What music was playing when you were not in control of the music? What music did your parents or guardians listen to?
Oh, Jesus. Well, my dad was like a big Clapton fan. He was a big like late 70s, 80s Clapton, like Slow Hand. So there's a lot of Clapton going on in my house. My parents weren't huge into music. My dad was when I was a baby. I mean, he had a pretty decent record collection. I have a bunch of his old records, Pink Floyd. He listened to a lot of Camel. Which are great. I have a ton of Camel albums that are my dad's old albums. He loved the kind of proggy kind of stuff, the old like Genesis and stuff like that. Selling England by the Pound and tunes like that and stuff. But then I mean, what I can remember, it was some bad stuff that my parents listened. I mean, it was like I remember there was some like a lot of Enya going on.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Simply Red, I believe. I remember Simply Red.
My dad listened to that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot of that kind of stuff, which was brutal, which I think was what kind of steered me to more extreme, like heavier metal and rock and stuff. So
Was your father a guitarist?
He tried to be. He wasn't. The first guitars I ever played were his like old acoustics that he bought to try and learn how to play. But he was just one of those people. It just didn't come. Now, he was always very jealous of the fact that I picked up a guitar and it just kind of came. And within a year, I was like playing songs that he could recognize and things. And he'd always say, "You bastard." I tried. My hands just don't do those things, right? So, I talked them into getting me my first electric guitar for Christmas when I was, 11 or 12 years old.
Really? I love that.
Yeah, cool.
I love that. And why the guitar? Why did you gravitate towards the guitar versus other instruments?
I mean, I played other instruments. My parents put me in piano lessons and stuff when I was really small, just to kind of get a good foundation on music, learning how to read music, all of that stuff.
It's amazing.
And I I'm thankful that they did, because that did lay a good bedrock, right? Good foundation. Even though I never really took the piano very seriously and stuff, it did teach me how to read music. It taught me how to listen and use my ears and translate that. And then also, when I was in middle school, at the same time I started to get into the guitar, I played saxophone in like the school band and stuff because I, again, could read music and had to do something. So I picked an instrument and played it. I think it's because there was like some cute girls in the flute section that sat in front of me. And, so saxophones were around that side near the flutes. So
I'll go over there. Yeah.
But I went to the guitar because it was just like, it's probably the same reason a lot of people go to the guitar. It's cool. It's sexy. It's, you see the guitar gods on stage and on videos and stuff, and they're,
MTV,
MTV, and even just like documentaries of like back in the days of like Blu-ray and DVD, and even VHS, like watching like old Pink Floyd docs and stuff, like David Gilmour just being like, how do you make a guitar sound like that? It's great.
Take me to your first show, the live music experience, the first time that you went as a fan to go watch a show. Do you remember that?
I've got some pretty funny ones there. There was, I did go see Metallica. My brother took me to see Metallica back when they were, Jesus, I can't even, it was probably like one of the Load tours or something, like early, like mid 90s, like, when I was finally old enough, born in 83, when Metallica was doing what I ended up gravitating towards, which is the 80s stuff, whatever, the first 4 albums, what everybody listens to. I was way too young to go see them, but my brother and my cousin, who were the same age, took me and a buddy to go see Metallica in Michigan at the Palace of Auburn Hills. That was cool. I saw Pantera when I was 6th grade, I think.
Sixth grade.
Them, that was I couldn't believe it. Like now, looking back at that as like a parent, like I saw it was Pantera and Coal Chamber open for them, and it was I don't think it was the Great Southern Trendkill tour. It was whatever they did after that. Like it was the 101 Proof.
Yeah.
Tour. It was right after Southern Trendkill, Great Southern Trendkill. But it was seriously not a show that like a 12-year-old should be going to unattended. And literally my friend's mom like just dropped me and my buddy Sean off of this show. And and we came out alive. And
you were there to see Pantera.
Yeah.
Was the reason why you guys went? Yeah.
We absolutely went to go see Pantera. Yeah, it was an awesome show. I mean, I worshiped Dimebag Darrell then in the day. I mean, he was one of the most incredible things I'd ever seen. I mean, he doing the shot of whiskey while ripping the solo, like I mean, that guy was an absolute god, and it was so effortless for him. And I had a whole wall in my room devoted to Dimebag Darrell, like magazine clippings. I had his old guitar, his old Dime Slime. It wasn't the Dean. It was when washburn took his signature style and did the I think by that time they were getting away from the Confederate flag one at that point. I think that was starting to look a little, back then it was like, I don't know, let's maybe we'll just ixnay that one, distance ourselves from the Confederate flag. But yeah, they did the Dime Slime and like the lightning. That was the one with the lightning and stuff all over. But I had the Dime Slime, which was like the green and yellow burst. Loved that guitar. Loved it. Played it. Never could play it like him, but
take me to your first time on stage. Was it with a saxophone? Was it?
Well, technically, yes, I guess, the saxophone, playing in the school concerts and whatever, but my first time like ever playing my guitar live was in high school. Just some band, I had friends, we jammed in the garage and stuff, played everything from metal to rock to indie to alternative and all this stuff. And I think we like threw together like a cover set for like a friend's like graduation party or something like that, and played your typical like graduation party tunes. I think there was like some Sublime in there and whatever was popular at the time, and so we did that. I think that was technically, as far as I can remember. I mean, I did other. I was part of like school oriented. I played guitar in like a jazz band early on in high school. That was like the school jazz band. So I did like saxophone and guitar duties in that. So we had concerts with that. But I didn't start actually like playing actual shows until I was like out of high school and in college. And that was kind of really with Riff Cannon that became Summoner. Really, I mean, that was yeah. I mean, I grew up in basically rural Michigan. There wasn't a ton of opportunity to play shows and stuff out there. There wasn't really anywhere to play unless you were a cover band or something. And, I just did a lot of like playing to like Metallica albums in my bedroom and stuff like that. That was kind of my bread and butter back then.
Were you ready when you got on stage, Pat?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, it was fun. I don't remember it being any kind of like disaster. The only time I remember having a like absolutely disastrous show in high school was a school like talent show thing where I played like what the hell was the name of the song? It was a Jose Triani song, like a finger picked, not like your typical Jose Triani like thing, but it was like I think it's called like Tears in the Rain or Tears in the Wind. It's off of the same album that like not Surfing with the Alien, his other Satch Boogie or whatever. I don't know. It was on The Extremist. That's what it was on the album The Extremist. I don't know if anybody out there. I was a nerd. I was in it. I did go to the first G3 tour with my parents when I was a kid. That was cool. So Steve Vai and Jose Triani and all that stuff. And but anyways, I got on stage to play this. It was just me and my guitar sitting on stage in like a high school auditorium, and I just froze. Oh no. Just that, and it was a very intricate, like finger picked hand, the hands needed to be on point and they were not. There was bad, just a clang, 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 bad strings and stuff. So that was one of the nightmare things. But I think by the time I got out of high school and I started playing like original music in a band with friends that I loved and and all of that, I think it was kind of second nature by that point.
You guys were prepped enough by that point.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. all the other guys in the band, Scott and Chris, they played, they grew up in South Shore, Massachusetts. Like they had a totally different, upbringing musically than I did, they were all, Scott was like heavy into the hardcore scene, the Boston hardcore scene in the, early 2000s, late 90s kind of thing. And he played in a bunch of bands and he played in a band called Draw Blood that was actually basically almost signed to Death Wish. But then it didn't happen for some reason. I can't remember why. And, Yeah. So they had more experience than I did.
So they schooled you.
Into it. They schooled me. Yeah. They let me know what was up. Yeah.
It's
Chris had played in like punk bands and stuff, you know, as a teenager and everything. So they were like veterans to me by the time, you know, I came in. But
you listened to them.
Yeah.
And hopefully you taught them stuff too.
I like to think so.
Let's talk about Brewtal North America, your involvement in Brewtal North America.
Yeah.
Back in June, I released 22 beers all across North America, collabs between VOX&HOPS alumni such as yourself and metal breweries. Now, what was your experience? This beer, Riff Cannon, has a long story because Gilded Skull Brewing and myself first got introduced, and I didn't realize that they are a contract brewery, which means that they need to step into someone else's brew house to get their beers made. So he reached out to Widowmaker. I had another band in mind, which I will not mention, to be the initial alumni in this collab, and that didn't pan out. And then Widowmaker dudes were like, can we do Summoner? And I was like, let's do Summoner. And here we are. So talk to me about what your experience being a part of Brewtal North America was like.
I mean, it was a great time. I mean, it was awesome. It was, you know, it was a much needed fun little project for us to, you know, the ones of us that were available, me and Joe and Dave, who's kind of our hype man. He's, you know, he's been on stage with us here and there, but he's always with us, you know, so he's one of our dear friends. We love him. We don't travel without him. You know, he's played with us on stage doing like synths and in between sounds and stuff like that, which is fun. You know, he's always a great personality, great person to have around. You know, it was a fun thing for us to do. I think at the time Chris was out in California with Deaf Heaven, doing some, I think, either writing or no, because they were recording the new album that Deaf Heaven just put out, or finishing it up or something. He was out there for Deaf Heaven doing rehearsals or something like that. So he wasn't around, and you know, it was great because Ryan, who is one of the owners of Widowmaker, is a good friend of mine. We're old hockey pals. We played hockey together.
Really?
Yeah. And you know, I was his. I'm a goalie. He's a forward. I think he plays wing primarily, left wing. But yeah, we met playing hockey, and we were just, you know, had a lot in common musically and taste wise, and obviously we both loved hockey, so we were friends. And then I kind of watched him start Widowmaker. And I was fascinated by how he did it and how well he did at it. He did a bang up job. At the time, he had a normal day job, worked his ass off, and still works his ass off. But now he makes a little bit more money doing it, and he got to quit his day job. And you know, so kudos to him and the guys, Colin, you know, who they were brewing beer in their basement, and now they got their tap room and their brewery, and they're kind of distributed all over the place and doing a great job. So when Ryan reached out to me, I hadn't heard from him in forever. I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years, and he reached out and just said, "Hey, does someone want to do this?" Like, hell yeah, we do. Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of wrangled up what guys I could, and it was a lot of fun. You know, it was a lot of fun to hang out. It was a lot of fun to go and like kind of see. I'd never seen beer be brewed before. I had no idea how it was done or how scientific. I mean, it's chemistry, right? It's absolutely, it's really
it's cooking meets chemistry.
Yeah, and Chris, their head brewer there, their lead brewer at Widowmaker, super knowledgeable guy, super cool guy, great taste in music. Again, he's a guitar player, you know. He was kind of explaining it to me. A lot of it was kind of like over my head a lot, you know. He was talking nuanced stuff that but I got to dump the hops in. That was cool. And you know, clear out the barrels and stuff between, you know, when they're transferring it from one to the next, all the mash, yeah. And, yeah, it was just a great time to hang out and actually kind of just say like, hey, well, like, this is can you make a beer that kind of tastes like this? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. We can do this, and this. And I think we'll get what you want. And they nailed it. I mean, they absolutely nailed it. You know, Neil, Gilded Skull, great dude. Super. I'd never met him before. I wasn't very familiar with Gilded Skull before all this, but I am now, you know, keeping up on what he's doing and trying to find his beers. And he was super chill guy, very knowledgeable. Again, working his ass off, you know, doing what he can. His story's crazy. You know, he's got a crazy story. And but it's just, he's a true kind of like perseverance, like, story, perseverance, just, this life is finite. Get done what you want to do and do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life, right? Is that what they say?
Absolutely, and he will have his tap house soon enough.
Yeah,
He won't be contract brewing forever, and support these amazing breweries if you can, people.
And when he does, I'll be going up there and drinking. So
I love it. I want to talk about how you've been filling the void from performing. You guys did a live stream, Day of Doom, with Magnetic Eye Records earlier this year. But what else have you been doing, or was it last?
Well, that wasn't a live stream. That was actually a live show, and that was in November of 19. So right before the pandemic hit.
Oh,
so
okay.
that was actually the last time Summoner has played live.
Really? Okay.
And it was great. Magnetic Eye put it on. It was a big label showcase, and they had all of the bands from the label. They flew in Elephant Tree from London. They flew in
Doomcraft too.
Domcraft, which great dudes. Those
cool.
guys. Yeah, we met them for the first time at Psycho Las Vegas in 2017. Awesome dudes. I stayed up until like 5 o'clock in the morning at the Hard Rock just talking to those guys. Phenomenal guys. They're like, I think the guitar player, he's a school teacher in Sweden, and we were talking about the differences, the US and Sweden and education. And he was talking about coming over to the States to study how the States, like, it does education, public education and things and all this stuff. But obviously there was a lot of drinking involved there too. But great dude. So it was awesome to see them at the Day of Doom. And then they, Horse Hunter, they kind of, who I wasn't actually very familiar with, but they're, obviously a great band, great musicians. And they kind of reunited to get Magnetic Eye to like put out this kind of, I think it was a re-release of something they did, but Magnetic Eye flew them over from Australia to play the Day of Doom. And then they ended up recording our set, Elephant Tree's set, Domcraft's set, and Horse Hunter's set. And then they released those as vinyl individually. And then they had some videos and stuff too of the sets and all of that stuff. But and Chris Johnson, our bassist singer, he kind of engineered the whole thing. He recorded the live sets there, so he was pulling double duty. So he had the live setup. He had the mics in the room and all of that, mics on the stage, running through the front of house board and taking it into his laptop on Pro Tools, and he brought it all home. He mixed it up and edited it and all that stuff, and sent it out.
Wonderful to have people like that in your band.
Yeah, it's great. Obviously Chris is a very talented engineer, talented musician, and he was. He was working hard that day. I don't think he had as much time to enjoy it as we did. But
so since you haven't performed since then, how have you been filling the void of performing throughout this pandemic?
Well, through the pandemic, me and Joe. So Joe, the other guitar player in Summoner, he's my brother-in-law, and we were really good friends before. Well, he joined the band from. After he came back from the Army, doing a few tours in Iraq and stuff. He was stationed out in Seattle. Went over to Iraq a few times. Once he was released from the Army, he came and joined the band. We kind of kept a space for him. He was best friends with Scott, our original drummer. So I met Joe through Scott. Long story short, we married sisters. Now we're brother-in-laws. He's got 2 kids. I've got 2 kids. We see each other a lot. And we both are, we are in lockstep when it comes to musical tastes, and always have been. And so me and Joe write together really well. So through the beginning of the pandemic, we started we've always passed riffs back and forth, and me and him are always putting songs together or demoing stuff. And, a lot of it gets just thrown on the cutting room floor, and some of it becomes Summoner songs. And there's others that are like great songs that we're like, yeah, this doesn't really work for Summoner. So we just kind of had that in the back pocket, and we just basically wrote. Summoner did actually go into the studio. We went into God City up in Salem and recorded a tune. It is yet to be finished, but that just speaks to how busy everyone is in the band, particularly Chris. He's very busy, obviously with his engineering at Deaf Heaven. And he's the professional musician in the band, right? He's the one who does it for a living. The rest of us are just kind of day job guys who like to play music and write and stuff. So, but yeah, that's basically what we did. We hopefully someday we'll finish that Summoner tune and put it out, and maybe we'll write some more stuff in the future. But right now we're, again, with Death Heaven just put out this new record. They're going to be hitting the road for a long time. Promotion of this new record. It's a big deal, high budget thing. And I saw like the Apple Music billboards. There's Chris, and it's crazy. It's pretty crazy to see. It's pretty nuts. I mean, he went to the Grammys last year because they were nominated for Best Metal Act, and which was all really cool. It's really cool to see like one of our own out there, at that kind of level. But yeah, with him being so busy, me and Joe are just going to keep writing. But now we're kind of free. We're not really writing for Summoner. Summoner's on somewhat of a break. We don't have anything in the books for Summoner. We don't have any plans for Summoner. We're going to let Chris do his thing and focus on what is obviously his form of income and his primary objective. And me and Joe are going to try and do something else. We're going to just write. We do have, I can't say too much about it because it's not publicly known yet. It hasn't been announced, but we did write 2 songs for a project for an artist. I can say that.
Oh, very cool.
He's a well-known singer, vocalist from kind of the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. Still very well known. If I said his name, many of your listeners would say, "Oh, yeah, he's great." Well, Magnetic Eye kind of reached out to us saying like, "Hey, do you want to write some songs for this guy? He wants to do this kind of collaboration record with a bunch of different artists." So basically demo up some tunes, send them to us, and he's going to go through them all and pick the ones he likes. Well, we wrote 2 tunes, we sent them out, and he picked both of them.
Amazing.
So then we tracked both of them for real. So that took up a lot of the pandemic for us. We tracked both tunes for real. Scott, the original drummer of Summoner, who left a little over a year ago, year and a half ago, he left the band. He came in, played drums on it, which was great to work with Scott again, because Scott's one of my nearest and dearest friends. We recorded it all down here in my basement, right where I'm sitting. Got the drum room on the other side of the stairs over there, and we tracked it all here and sent it off. And now it's in said artist's hands. We'll see what he does with it. So hopefully
exciting.
There'll be more to come from that. So
can't wait to hear that. And
can't wait to say who it is.
Once we stop recording, I'm going to ask you that question for sure.
Yes.
I'm in a band with musicians that tend to get into many other projects. Flo is in Ultimass. He's been in many other projects. My bassist joined Cattle Decapitation, put out a mammoth of a record right before the pandemic. I know how I feel, and I started the podcast because I knew that as happy as I was for them being so successful, I was afraid that I'd be jealous. So I started my own thing because Chris has his studio going. He's doing very well with that. So I needed something for myself to keep myself busy when I knew that they'd be on these touring cycles. How did you cope with, or when Chris joined Death Heaven?
When Chris joined Death Heaven, it was definitely like, whoa, wow,
because
okay,
it's
cool.
huge.
That's huge. Yeah. First off, we were obviously extremely proud of him. He is an exceptional bass player. He deserves to be in that position. He's that dude who we were always used to him kind of being away anyway, because before he joined Death Heaven, he was a touring engineer, right? Front of house engineer. And that's kind of how he got hooked up with Death Heaven, was through doing that, right? So he would tour with various bands, not as a member of the band, but doing their live sound.
Which is a part of the family,
Exactly, yeah. So he was out on the road for, months at a time. So it wasn't like all of a sudden Chris was away. It was like Chris was always made his living doing that. It's just now he's actually an active member of the band. He's on stage. Yeah, he was doing, because he was playing in Doom Riders for a while, which was awesome. Obviously those guys are great. They're not super active right now, but local band. But with them, he never really went on any long tours. It would be like a week or two. They go to Europe or something, play some shows. But all the guys in Doom Riders have again other projects, right? Like half of them are in Las Vegas right now for Psycho Las Vegas, right, with Old Man Gloom and and all of that stuff. So so it wasn't new, but it was just kind of one of those things. we never intended for Summoner to be a touring 9 months out of the year kind of band. And when we signed to Magnetic Eye Records, we made it very clear to them that we were we like to get in the studio, we like to make records. We will play shows locally and up and down the Eastern Seaboard kind of thing. We'll play festivals if they'll have us, where it's like we go and fly out for the weekend, play the show, have a good time with our friends, come home to our families, right? So, so I think it was more of like to fill Chris's need to tour. Was he went out and did that stuff, right? Whereas like me and Joe and Scott, we were just kind of like, oh no, we're cool, like playing, the random festival here and there, or playing down in New York, or traveling up to Maine and playing in Portland, and generally staying around home, doing what we used to refer to as like weekend warrior tours. We'd like go out, we used to do the weekend warrior tours. We did a couple of them with Elder back when they were like not even old enough to drink and nobody knew who they were. And now like everybody loves, they're a phenomenal band. Nick is an amazing guitarist, good friends of ours, love those guys. I remember sneaking those guys shots at the bar, because they were like 19 years old. I think Nick was like 19 years old, and I'd be like, yeah, 2 shots of whiskey. Here you go, Nick. Like slide him one across the bar. You sure this is okay to do? Come on, man, just do it, But I was always in awe of that kid and his ability to play. The whole band, Jack, the bass player, phenomenal. Matt, who's not playing in the band anymore, but also a great dude. But yeah, so that we were kind of used to it, so we were never looking to like fill every weekend or every night with shows, or go on month 2 month 3 month long tours or anything like that. We would have loved to. We had a couple opportunities to like go over to Europe for a couple of weeks. They just never fully panned out because of where different members were in their lives, and so we were just kind of happy with where Summoner was, and we just like being in the studio and making music mainly.
This is great. It's great, and that comes with the maturity too. Having a band at this point in your life, or we're the same age, so knowing what you want from your band, and every bandmate being on board for that is crucial.
Right. Yeah, and that's what it was. And I think Chris wanted to make a run of it more than any of us, but he scratched that itch by making a run of it with other bands, and good for him, good on him, and he's done a great job. And that's great, and that kind of held the balance for a long time. But now it's like, now he's really hot and heavy in Death Heaven, and Death Heaven is their globally touring act that's out on the road constantly. It's pro stuff. They're he's going out, flying out for rehearsals and going on tours, and we're like, cool, we'll do some other stuff.
You'll wait for him though.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. Who knows? He's probably gonna be gone most of this year, but we'll see what happens. We're not making any commitments to anything, but in the meantime, me and Joe are trying to write some other stuff. It's nice to get outside the box of writing Summoner songs. It's enabled us. Well, the first thing both me and Joe did was we took our guitars out that aren't tuned to C# standard.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my God, we get to play in E again. Yes. Because we're both like
a quicker tempo too.
Quicker tempo. We're more, both of us are very into like classic tones. We're very into guitar tones and stuff. And you can get great tones when you're tuned down. Like my Flying V right there, that's my Summoner guitar. That's set up in C#, right? But I've got other guitars that are in E and E flat, and whatever. You just can't get that like classic 70s cranked Marshall sound in C#. It's just too low. The amps bass out, things like that. You have to have extreme overdrive and noise gates and all of this stuff, and that's where things come out sounding really tight. To get that like jangly 70s fun, controlling everything with the volume knob kind of tone, you really have to be in E or E flat, right? So the first thing me and Joe did, hey, tune up to E, let's go. We're gonna write some songs in E and E flat. That's the lowest we're going. So
amazing. If you could make another beer for yourself, what would you call it, and what style of beer would it be?
Oh wow. Well, lately I've been drinking sours, believe it or not. I think they're kind of a new thing that microbrews are doing.
It depends on what style of sour.
Yeah, I think there's two different kinds, right? There's
There's the wild blended where they barrel age them and then they blend those barrels. And then there's the more Berliner Weiss or kettle sours that they're dropping fruit in.
Yes, I think it was the first one you said is the one that
the more complex, closer to a wine, let's say.
Yeah, maybe that might be the one. But yeah, I'd say maybe I do sour like that, or I do also like very heavy rich beers, stouts, things like that. So those are really nice in the wintertime. The dead of winter in New England. Having a nice thick double chocolate stout or something is just nice. It's like drinking a chocolate cake, and what's better than eating a chocolate cake? Drinking a chocolate cake.
And it gets you drunk too. So.
Yeah, and they're 8%, 9% alcohol. So those are great. Yeah, I also like red ales. So maybe a red ale might be good.
Interesting. What would you call it?
Oh Jesus,
Riff Cannon was perfect.
That was a good beer name. I think that's
perfect.
Yeah. I think I'd maybe call it what the band Riff Cannon was almost called. And that's Thrust Musket. No joke. Yeah, it'd be a nice chocolate stout called Thrust Musket.
AJ, one last question. Classic Vox and Hops wrap-up question.
Cool.
It probably doesn't happen to you very often because you have young children. You're busy working, you're in the studio, you're writing for a mystery 90s vocalist. But every once in a while, it happens to everyone. What is your hangover cure?
A hangover cure? Oh boy. Well, I do still get hungover, even though I do have small children. Unfortunately for me, I just can't control myself sometimes. My hangover cure is, obviously when I know it's going to be a rough one, I do obviously the ibuprofen before I go to bed and drink a shitload of water. And then when I wake up in the morning feeling horrible, obviously that first couple shots of espresso is always good, getting those down you. Liven things up a bit, maybe a little bit of the hair of the dog, little hair of the dog. If I can hold it down, depends on how hungover I am. And then just kind of right now throw it on the TV so the kids are occupied and laying on the couch. That's one of those times I don't feel too guilty about stuffing my kids in front of the television. Here's Sesame Street. All right, leave daddy alone. There we go.
I did it. Yeah. I fed them.
Yeah.
They're alive.
Yeah. They're still alive. They're going to be fine. Don't worry. Yeah.
AJ, thank you so much for taking the time, having a chat with me, talking about your life, music, and craft beer. It was a true pleasure. I'm very happy that Widowmaker brought you on to Brewtal North America so that we could become acquaintances, and that now you are a Vox and Hops alumni. It makes me very, very happy, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with you again real soon.
Definitely. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, and I'm honored to be an alumni.
Cheers.
Cheers, good sir.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. You know that I love and appreciate that. Man, did I ever have a blast connecting with AJ. Man, am I ever happy that the wonderful dudes at Widowmaker introduced me to AJ. I feel that we connected really deeply. This was a great conversation, and I know that when we hang out, we're going to have a very good time. And I'm very, very much looking forward to that. Massive cheers to you, AJ, for taking the time to hang out with me and to finally be a member of the Vox and Hops alumni. Now, if you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should sign up to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast mailing list. You can do that on my website, voxandhops.com. That's VOXANDHOPS.com. And when you do that, you shall receive one email a week containing all of the details of everything that has happened throughout the past week in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, including all the details for any episodes which I've dropped throughout that past week, if I've been a guest on someone else's podcast, as well as the updated links to the Brewtal Awakenings playlist, which is curated by my man Jerry Monk, the metal architect himself. And you'll also get a sneak peek behind the scenes look at anything that I have in the works, any cool projects that I'm working on, but I have not announced to the public yet. So please do me a huge favor, sign up to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast mailing list, because there's just so much going on that I would hate for you to miss a single thing. The Vox and Hops Metal Podcast is brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts. I hope you have a glorious rest of the week, I hope that you come and hang out with us this coming Thursday for an epic Thirsty Thursday virtual hang. It starts at 8 p.m., and I'm going to be hanging out with the VOX&HOPS Metal Review crew. We're going to be talking about their top 10 albums of 2021. I'm stoked for it, and I would love to see you there. But until then, I hope that you remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, VOX&HOPS heads.